Okay.
I went to Coleraine High School and graduated in 1941. And you had a list of all of the things that we didn't have in 1941. Well, I do.
Cell phones and televisions and tape recorders and all the many things.
Everything, basically.
Everything, basically. We
41.
have a list for everything.
That was when the war started. So.
There wasn't any frozen foods and all that kind of stuff. Well, I know of a family that had been married 70 years because they got married right out of high school, and I correspond with them yet.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep me, and I know one other lady that was my age that moved into assisted living in Hamilton,
Mm-hmm.
and those are the three of us out of the 42 that
Are still living.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. 42 was in your graduating class.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you were telling us about you were the last kid on the road on Lick Road.
I was the last kid on the Lick Road, and you couldn't go all the way through on Lick Road because there had been a slip.
Like an avalanche or something? Or
Well,
mountain slip?
the material just gave way and went down into the creek and took the road along with it,
Mm-hmm.
and there wasn't anybody else. There was one more farm down there, but it didn't have any kids. So, and Mr. Crawford, who lived in Dunlap and had a grocery store in Dunlap, was my bus driver. And if Mother needed some groceries, now this wasn't perishable groceries, but it was, say, maybe coffee or sugar or flour or whatever, she would have a little billfold, and she'd have money in it. She'd have her list in it, and she'd give it to me, and I'd give it to Mr. Crawford, and he'd put it in his pocket. And that night, when they picked us up at school, there'd be a little box behind his seat. And when I got round to get ready to get off, he would say, "Don't forget the box. Your mom needs it."
Oh, that's great. So she got groceries delivered door to door.
Yeah. You don't have that now, and you didn't have it then. So,
That's true. That's true.
and we lived on the Butler County.
Warren County? No. What was the other town? Hamilton County.
We lived in Hamilton County, but the bulk of the farm was in Greene County, Butler County. And so, where are we now?
So we were going to talk about your days at the pharmacy and then how you met Daddy.
Okay. My brother had a fellow by the name of Gordon Werns that was a very good friend of his, and they lived over near Green Hills someplace, and his wife Eva worked at the drugstore, and they were going to move, and so he said that the pharmacist said, "Do you know of somebody that might take your place, either at the soda fountain or the drugstore?" And she said, "Well, let me go see if Ed Muller's sister wants to come." And so she came over and asked me and took me back and introduced me to the pharmacist, and I got the job right then. I started at the soda fountain and then worked up, and I had worked there for 7.5 years, and everybody knew me by Sis, because my brothers had called me Sis, and even Gordon had called me Sis. So they had a little newspaper they put out once a week, and it had said, Rosemary Ellerding is engaged to Howard Ellerding Jr. And Mr. Ellerding works at the county office
which was Grandpa Ellerding, works at the county extension office.
Worked at the office as town front manager, and she is locally known as Sits.
Oh,
So many people didn't know that. So
sure. Didn't know your real name was Rosemary.
Right. Well, of course, Doc came back from the service, and he was very shy because of all of the problems he had with digestion and everything. And his dad said, "I bet you can't get a date with Rosemary over at the drugstore." So after a while, he came in and he said, "Yeah, how about going out with me?" But he was one of the decent kids on the block, and so that's how it worked out.
Now, he was out of the military by the time you met him.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he had already gone to Ohio State, but he hadn't finished,
Well,
right?
he had, when you went through veterinary medicine, you had to go two ways. You either had to have 2 years of agriculture or 2 years of science before you could apply for veterinary medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So he had those 2 years down and 2 years of vet med before the Army took him.
Okay, so he had 4 years in college before he went off to the Army, before he was drafted.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No, when he come back, he finished up.
Got it. Okay.
Well, usually the classes would be between 40 and 60.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the class, and it was the last of the speeded up years from the Army. From, I guess the only, what it did is, there were only 20 in his class.
Okay.
And here is this big auditorium, and as you sit, the seniors get around in the first row, and then on up, and sometimes the sophomores were on the 6th and 7th row. Well, the funny part of it is Dr. Godot come to us and wanted to know if he could work summer times with us. And Doc said, "Well, sure, that'd be great." And so they would go out together, and into, maybe the first year and a half, Doc was also on the Board of Health for 37 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so
37 years. Oh, yes, that's right, because he did that while he was also a veterinarian.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They are schooled in that.
Mm-hmm.
And so
You want to take a break?
he was getting ready to go to a meeting at the Board of Health, and he opened the garage door once more time, and he said, "Oh, and by the way, Bob, there's a cat in the cage, and he has to be spayed, and I'll be home at 5:30. And Doc's, after good mouth tried, he said, I never spayed a cat before. I was in the second row." I said, "Are you going to spay it? And I'm going to assist, or I'm going to assist." And you assist. I've never done one either, but I've assisted so long, I know what to do. He said, "If you'll assist me, I'll do it."
Oh, that's great. Oh, my goodness. Now, tell me an interesting memory about when you worked at the pharmacy.
Oh, there were some girls who were working there, and they were stealing silk stockings, and they had laid them away because they were supposed to be recalled, and then they would
Recalled because of the war. They
Yeah.
needed the silk
Yeah.
for the war,
Yeah.
for some of the materials they were going to use for the war.
And so a lot of the stuff was recalled, and so they would take them out on their own, fly them out. Well, pharmacy found out about it, and so they got everybody to join the union. because they figured if they had the union in there, they could fire these girls a little easier because they had somebody behind them. And so when January, the last day of December and the first day of January, the store would be closed and we would take inventory.
Annual inventory, right?
Inventory. So I was downstairs in the basement inventorying all of the pop bottles that were down there. And of course, at that time there was tall bottles and short bottles of different varieties. And I was writing them down, and this one box wouldn't go back where it was supposed to. And so I pulled it out, and here was a box. And I looked at it, and it was a beautiful China doll. One of the girls had hid it away, but didn't get it out before the
firing took place.
Firing.
Yeah.
So that was a ditch for me.
That was quite a. You were the hero that day, Mom, weren't you? Wow, for finding the discovery of the beautiful China doll. Neat.
How far are we?
You did really good.
Yeah, let's just take a break. You wanna?
Yeah.